Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you, our audience, walk away enriched and inspired. And today, as you can see, we have with us Debra Cohen, author of Jewish Palestine, Arab Palestine, A History of Conflict. And she wrote it to help people to get a basic understanding of the documented events leading up to Israel's statehood and why Palestinians did not. So all will let's dive into the story behind the story. Welcome to the show, Deborah.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope your weather is as good as it is here in Florida.
Indeed. And when you talk to an author, you learn so many things that point in time you forget about everything else. You get immersed into what the story is all, and stories take us into a different world altogether where weather is very good, or you understand the weather in a bit more different way. So first, Deborah, I want to understand a bit more about this book for the audience. What is this whole book about? Why, and any particular earlier on experience with books?
Well, this book wasn't anything that I planned on writing. It came to me just like a spiritual burden. The feeling of something bothering you more than ordinary. The first time that I experienced a spiritual burden was when I learned that the Christian Sudanese in Sudan were being persecuted by the northern Arab Muslims. And I didn't have any reason to be concerned about Sudan because I was in the United States as a musician. So, but it didn't leave me that feeling of this. How can I help? There must be something I can do. So at that time in the 90s, when I had that burden for Sudan, I contacted the UNHCR, which is the Refugee Resettlement Office of the UN, and arranged to have a family, a persecuted family, live in my home in the United States, husband and wife with 3 or 4 little kids until they could get on their own as part of the resettlement plan, which is what the UNHCR does. So that same feeling of a burden came to me a second time last year after the October 7th massacre in Israel. And again, it was shocking to hear the news, but I had that same feeling that wouldn't leave me of what can I do to help these people? So, we have to in life choose who we're going to help. I mean, we can't realistically help the whole world except in prayer. But so I thought, what can I do to help them? I'm in the United States and they're in Israel and I don't know them. And so I got the impression to write a book. I discovered some facts about the information of Palestinians, and I didn't know very much about it, but I started to explore, and this information came to me, and I discovered that there were Arab Palestinians and Jewish Palestinians in this land dispute, Israeli-Palestinian dispute. And I heard Golda Meir in a video movie say that even her passport says she was a Palestinian, the president of Israel. And I'm like, what? I've never heard these things. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. They don't really know what's going on. So with all of this horrible war going on in Israel right now, there has to be a way to divulge information, facts, because the war turned into a propaganda war. And, with propaganda, maybe it's half factual, but it's not really exactly correct. So this land dispute, which is apparently what this conflict is about in the Middle East is really more than a land dispute when you start studying the facts. And I had tried previously to understand the Israeli Palestinian conflict by reading other books, and I got more confused because I didn't understand who are these people. So I came across, as with my former profession as a public high school teacher, I had the skills that were necessary to write a book, and created an outline for people to read this book with an easy to read outline so people can digest this information that's out there and sift through the facts and decide for themselves at the end of this reading whether it's realistic to have a two-state solution. And if it is realistic, what is the answer? And I have come to a conclusion about what is the answer and would like to share it in this book with everybody, as well as the upcoming president of the United States and the Israeli leadership, because nobody's come up with this idea that I've gotten for a two-state solution where both the Arab Palestinians and the Jewish Palestinians have their own land. And actually, as a matter of fact, the Palestinians have been offered two different times from the presidents, Reagan and Clinton. They were offered their own land, the Arab Palestinians that are now in Gaza in the West Bank. But both times they refused. And you have to ask yourself, why did the Palestinians refuse land that was offered to them by not only the United States presidents on two occasions, but also British Palestine, who actually ruled over this land in the 20th century? They were offered a peace deal, and the leader at that time, al-Husseini, turned it down because he was rubbing elbows with Hitler. And we know that Hitler hates the Jewish nation as well as other people he exterminated during the Holocaust, including people with deformities and homosexuals and certain other people that were burned to a crisp. But you never hear anybody complaining about those situations. Everything somehow has become, in this regard, Israel's fault. And so my reason for publishing this book is to help people get the facts so that they can make it better in this world. Whatever comes to you as a burden, like I've explained, has come to me, you're supposed to do something with that. You're not supposed to make it worse or get people to hate other people. That's not why we're here. So that's why I wrote this book, and I'm hoping everybody will read it.
Right, right. So, what was the most challenging part of writing this book, Deborah?
Well, the challenging part, of course, is being self-published and trying to figure out, you see all these ads online. Anybody can write a book and just enroll in my class and you will be a rich author. Wouldn't that be nice to be rich? I'm still working on it with my book and my music. But the hardest part is trying to figure out how to put a book together as a self-publisher. And the reason I self-publish is because I can't afford to pay somebody like one of the workshops I wanted to attend was the author who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. The guy's a millionaire and he wants to charge a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me to take his class so that I can become an author. I'm like, I can't. I had to do it all myself. And then, of course, even harder is once the book is finished, any author knows you're not done. You wrote a book but you're not done, because who's going to find your book? There's a bazillion books in the world. You have to advertise or do book tours. And these are all things that require more money. So that old saying, you have to have money to make money, I think it's true.
Right, right, Deborah. So you could have written on any other subject. Why just get into, you were an indie artist, cartorial soloist, yoga teacher, beauty contestant this year. so so why particularly this? Can any particular topic, impact so much? And does it means you will be writing more political issues and all, or is this the last one?
I that's a really good question. And I my second book already has a title, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want it to be a surprise. But it's going to be more about my life as a musician, and how to maybe become one, and the challenges of becoming a musician, an indie artist, unsigned. And I never planned on becoming an author, but it's in the cards, so to speak. But I just would like to uh, I would like to be able to write books that matter. And when I write books, I don't sit down looking for ideas. This book was written not from any idea I had. It was from that burden that I told you about, the burden that came to me. So I believe that is a divine intervention. We can all have them. And it's up to each one of us individually what we're going to do with the burden. So if God decides to send me another burden, then I'll write another book. But if not, I'll just keep working on the book about myself, which of course, at my age, just having turned 70, I have a lot to write about in life. So I can write about that anytime, because as long as I'm here, there's more to add to that book. But if something else more important than a story about me comes along, then I'll put my book on the back seat or the back burner, and write about whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing in life.
Right, right, Deborah. Any particular passage line that you would want, any favorite line of yours, passage of yours that you would want to read out for the audience? Can you think of any?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking me. Well, let me just start with the beginning, because that will let people know whether or not they want to read this book. The term Palestine first appears in the 5th century BCE, when the Greek historians Herodotus, Aristotle, Polemon, and Pausanias wrote about this area and referred to it as Palestine. Roman writers also mentioned this land in their writings, such as, and I list a bunch of people there, as well as Roman Judean writers, Philo of Alexandria and Josephus. Writers during this period also used the word Palestine to refer to the entire region between Syria and Egypt, with numerous references to the Jewish areas within Palestine. So if you think about Palestine in this book, you have to understand that the land was there before these Palestinian people made a claim to the land. In the Egyptian history, there's so many artifacts. I've been to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Egypt, and there is a monument there with a script of mentioning the Jewish people as belonging to that land. The land in dispute today, Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And if you listen to Bill Clinton's speech, which he gave at the last presidential campaign in the United States, when incoming President Trump was competing against Harris, President Clinton came to Harris's podium and gave a speech about when he tried to offer the same land called Israel before it was Israel in a deal to the Palestinians who refused. Yasser Arafat refused. But Bill Clinton, former President Clinton, said it's historical fact that land has always belonged to the Jews. It used to be called Canaan. And all of that is in this book. And you will find out if you read this book what land was offered to the Arab Palestinians. And Bill Clinton goes on to say they were offered Transjordan before it became Jordan. But the Palestinians didn't want Transjordan. They wanted, and this is President Clinton that said this, they wanted the land of Israel because they don't want any Jews on the land. They want to exterminate them. So the irony of all of this is that how can these world organizations say that Israel is guilty of a genocide when it's actually in the reverse? And then if you're a Christian and you understand your Bible, it says in the end times that the appearance of evil will have the actual appearance of good. So things are flipped in this world. But spiritually speaking, the land belongs to in the Bible, the Jewish or the Christian Bible, and as well as in the Quran, which you will find out in this book. The Muslims' Bible says that land called Israel belongs to the Jews, which was given to them by God.
Right. So, Deborah, there will be, that's your view, and I'm sure other people will have their views. Some will agree with you, some will not agree. And that's the way a healthy debate happens. That's the way, a book also ignites those conversations so that big people become more educated. I do not know much about it, but the whole idea is to get more and more varied views, varied authors with their,
Yes.
hard work and bring different aspects of their understanding to the audience. And that's the whole effort. So what is the key message that you want readers to take away from this discussion, from this book of yours?
The like you said, AJ, it's healthy debate. Now, college students, I'm talking in America, they used to have a debate class, learn how to debate with opposing views without losing your composure. And I don't know if they're teaching that in college anymore because our next generation is protesting in violence. They have lost their integrity, they have lost their tempers, and they promote hate. And that's not a healthy debate. So if we are all part of the human race, we need to learn how to talk with each other like we're doing. You may not even agree with the content of this book, but we need to be a civilized world and talk to each other despite our differences and come to the best conclusion to make this world a better place. That's why we are here. We're not here to hate each other. We're here to help each other. So I hope this book will be an aid to reach that goal. You might not agree with anything I say, but at least consider and explore the facts, the history. Don't come up with these propaganda terms and defend lies. That's ridiculous to do that. That does not create unity.
Absolutely. There is much to understand about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about you, from you, about this book. What's the best way for them to do so, Deborah?
Well, you can go to my website. It's Debra, Debra, Cohen, Cohen, books.org.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.